everyone, my name is Makomi-chan. I am here doing eSports 101, managing a team. I am the team captain and manager for Pride Start Gaming's Overwatch team. I've won a few different international tournaments. I've peaked at like number 30 support in the world. And I've hosted my own tournaments as well that had like some of the really high-end console players in it and whatnot. And I've been like the tournament got like partnered with Blizzard. We have like a Blizzard license or something, so I've done some stuff. Yeah. Also, I have a wonderful mouse pad that is like my favorite gaming mouse pad I've ever used. I convinced my sponsor, Bloody Gaming, to send me a couple to give away in my panels. So I have one I am giving away tonight here in this panel. So that's gonna happen later though, so stay through the whole thing. It's awesome. My kid has spilled actual liquid on it and it still works. So very durable, I love it. But so I want to talk about managing a team tonight. There is a lot that goes into not just being a player in an agency, but also managing an agency team. Like, there's a lot more to being a professional gamer than just being really good at a video game. And that's kind of what I want to talk about tonight. Like, the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that, like, the players don't really talk about publicly very much. So what I want to cover in this panel, how you go about picking your teammates. That includes what I've done for tryouts and the interview process for the past about year and a half. Time management, team communication, team rules and discipline, how to market your team, and when to start approaching agencies or sponsors. So all of the pretty major things. So first, for picking your teammates. Picking your teammates are it's one of the most important things you can do, especially like as a casual who wants to eventually get into the professional scene. You need to make sure that you associate good players with the image you're trying to create. Not just good players in they have very good like mechanical game skill sense, but in they're actually good human beings. Because at the end of the day, like a sponsor or an agency isn't going to want to sign a bigot. You feel like they have to be decent human beings. For tryouts, I like to do a two-step process. First, I do interviews. I find most of my players on Discord, in different like tournament servers. I go through and like go and find the free agent channels, and then like I reach out to the people who are like skilled in the role that I need and also have like a certain ranking requirement. Then I reach out to them, or they reach out to me when I do post sometimes. And I like to do voice interviews. So what I'll do is I'll have them go into like a private Discord channel, or like I'll have them hop on like an Xbox party or like a Skype interview or something like that. And I'll ask them a series of questions that not just like tell me about what they've done in the gaming world, like if they've been on any teams previously, if they've won any tournaments, if they have like scrimmage experience, things like that. I'll ask like where they are in life, like if they're a student, are they in college, are they in high school, how old are they, do they live on their own, do they still live with their parents, things like that. Because like if your team is already in like one position in life, if you bring somebody into the team who's not at the same stage, sometimes there can be like personality clashes and whatnot, and that'll make the team less enjoyable for other players involved. And then if they make it past my voice interview section, then I'll let them actually meet the team and do a team tryout. If you want to put it on, it's fine. So I do tryouts. I do two different things for the actual team tryouts. I'll do Smurf and Chill, where we'll get a 6-stack together and we'll smurf in like Diamond or like Low Masters or something. And we'll just like see where they are as a player, like how they handle like interacting with the team, because when you're smurfing, you know, like you get to like be a little bit more candid than you are when you're playing against like top 10s. And then if the team likes their personality and thinks that they can get along with them, then like I'll invite them to one of our weekly scrims that we have against another agency team or a team of like free agents and stuff that we play in tournaments. And then if they make it past that, they do well, and the team likes them, then we accept them in. But a lot of it, like I said, is more so just like making sure that they're like decent people and they have the skill ranking and they're willing to work hard. Like when you're picking teammates, it's also really important to make sure that they're able to have the work ethic, because when you are involved in esports, because it's such a fast-paced, like quick turnaround industry, like they'll get burnt out very quickly. And for some leagues that are a really long time, you need to, where do I do the thing? F5, thank you. Haha. Wait. Wait for it. Wait for it. Thank you, kind sir.
Give him a mouse pad.
Where even am I? Okay, there we go. So yeah, honestly, like I basically just like read through my PowerPoints for panels and like add things in. So like if you actually want to remember some of this stuff, feel free to take pictures. Like they normally get posted online somewhere anyways. But yeah, it's basically it for picking your teammates. Is it switching? Okay. Then we have, just gonna move this. I am too tall to lean over. Then we have time management. Time management is something that a lot of gamers really suck at. I suck at time management, and I have really had to work on it over the past few years in order to not just like better myself, but also help my team develop healthy habits. So time management covers more than just practice and match times. It encompasses all areas of your team's life. Do you go to bed at a decent time and actually get 8 hours of sleep? Or are you up grinding ELO until 3 a.m. when you have to wake up at like 6 a.m. for your day job? Like, do you remember to eat? Do you like work out and exercise to keep your body healthy along with your mind? Like all of these things fall into your time management. Do you remember to clean your apartment? Like, do you do your laundry? Like a lot of pro gamers, they don't have like, it's not a regular 9-to-5 job. A lot of pro gamers work from home and they grind whenever their team is on to grind. And when you do your tournaments online and you don't have like team housing, because a lot of agencies don't do team housing unless you're in like a really big league, you like are working in like multiple different time zones. Like just on my team, I've had people from the West Coast, I've had people from Hawaii, I've had people from the Midwest. So I've had like 3 or 4 different time zones on my team at one point. And that's not even taking into account the number of time zones that are on the other teams that I have to play for tournament matches in a certain like week time window and stuff. So scheduling can get kind of crazy. And like you have to be able to manage everybody's time, and you have to try to make sure that the time that you guys are committing to the team is not just a benefit for yourself individually, but it also doesn't negatively affect anybody else on the team. Because like when you're a professional player, like you don't just wake up, you know, like an hour or 2 before your tournament match and go and play. You have like a whole routine that you do like the week leading up to the tournament. Like some players will actually change their diet to be more healthy, or some players will like work out in a different way and stuff. Like being a pro gamer encompasses more than just playing the game. It's your whole life. And being able to manage that time is really crucial. And there are several apps that you can use to actually help you organize your players' schedules. I prefer Team Up and Discord. I use Team Up the most for scheduling. My phone is still dead, so I can't like bring it up and show people. But it's like a giant calendar. It's a free app, and individual players can go in and they can add, like, for instance, if you're a college kid, you can add like, I have class here, I have class here, I have class here. And you can do it in different colors for each teammate, so then you can see when you all have some free time together, and then you can plan your practices and scrims and tournament matches around that accordingly. Another one that a lot of players have used, I don't personally use it. I have worked with teams that use Guilded. I don't really like it that much because it doesn't have like the scheduling option like that. It's more so like a Facebook event kind of that they do, but Guilded can work if your team has less restrictions on time. Like if your team doesn't have like, if they don't work full time for a day job, if they're lucky enough where they only have to work part time and gaming pays like the other half of their salary, like Guilded is something that could work. I use Discord for everything. I'm in like 20 servers, and Discord is fantastic. It's great for networking. And it's also a really good just like way to talk with your team, not just in a professional setting, but it's also a good way for your teammates to kind of like bond and get to know each other. Like my team, we have our official Discord section and like our agency server. And then we have like another server where we just like post memes and stuff and like funny YouTube videos. Like I'm gonna be real with you. Like, it's not all just grinding for ELO. And so, like, we have, like, that little dichotomy going on. And making sure your team is consistent in practice days, scrims, and in their own lives is one of the easier ways to help your team be successful. So if your team isn't getting sick constantly because they have horrible sleeping and eating habits, then they're probably going to do better. So just something to think about. Then we have team communication. How many people in here actually do play team-based video games? So like a MOBA or like Overwatch or like Team Fortress. We're going ancient. Yeah, so like a lot of you guys. So this is really relevant to a lot of the people in here. Because if your comms suck as a team, you are going to have a much harder time than you should be. Team comms covers two aspects, in-game and then IRL, so like the Discord chat or something. The best teams are teams where the players get along with each other. As the leader, it is your responsibility to foster a productive and positive space for your teammates to interact with each other. I covered that a bit last slide with the Discord channel. We're all gamers. I'd like to think that all of us have been kind of like outcasts at some point in our lives. Like I got made fun of for reading Nintendo Power in school and whatnot. Like a lot of gamers, like the stereotype is that like sometimes we don't have the best communication skills when it comes to interpersonal communication, and that's something that like I personally had to work on in the past several years, and it's something that I'm working on with some of my teammates currently. And making sure that your teammates can express their feelings, either like feelings of joy, feelings of success, or negative feelings, like if they're angry with a teammate because a teammate keeps doing something really dumb and it's like soft throwing, like being able to express that in a constructive manner so they don't get brushed off. Because sometimes the people that have like toxic tendencies, they actually do mean well and have like really useful things that they're trying to say. It's just they don't know how to go about it the proper way to where it's received well and taken seriously. So like trying to help your team understand that and like individual players work on that, like that's a really big thing. In-game is a whole other ball game. Like a lot of times, like if you're just playing on the ladder, you know, like the communication will be all over the place or non-existent. Like there's no in between. I've never had like that good experience just solo queuing. And in game, your comms need to be concise, quick, and of high importance. Assigning designated shot callers is extremely important, and it should be done as soon as you have your core team members. So who here plays Overwatch? Yeah? Awesome. A lot of you play Overwatch. Okay. So can somebody in the crowd tell me who on the enemy team would be considered a high priority target to focus? There you go. Generally speaking, though, you want to target the supports, though, because they only have 200 hit points versus the Zarya with a Mercy Pocket that won't leave her alone.
You want the support and then you want the hyper, sorry.
Yep. Supports are easier to kill. As a support player, we're easier to kill. We're squishy. So if you're like a tracer, I know she hasn't really been meta recently because of Brig, but so if you're a tracer and you didn't one-clip the Mercy, you should be calling out, hey, Mercy 1, and then the other DPS should be going in with you, and everybody on the team actually should completely shift their focus to the enemy Mercy or the enemy Lucio, or whatever the team's primary support is. Generally speaking, whenever you choose your shot callers, you have a macro shot caller, and then you have a micro shot caller, and that's a whole other panel. But generally speaking, the macro shot caller is normally your main tank because they don't have the most, they're really easy mechanically to play, so they don't have to, focus as much. It sounds horrible. Sorry, main tank players. Swing it, no aim, no brain, Winston main. But you don't really have to aim that much, so it's a lot easier to play versus a DPS. The macro shot caller, they are the ones that determine where the team is moving, what route the team is taking to reach the payload or reach the objective, where they're moving in general and MOBAs and stuff. And they also are the shot callers. They can do shot calling if you don't have a flanker DPS. Then you have your micro shot caller. That's normally a support player. On my team, I have my side support do it actually because he's better at it than me. But they call out ult economy on the enemy team. Being able to track enemy ults is something that's super important, and a lot of players need to get better at it, honestly. They will track what enemy players have ults, and then they'll be calling it out. For instance, if you're in overtime and certain people on the team don't know if the enemy Zarya has grav, well, the micro shot caller is supposed to be keeping a mental track of that. And so they should be able to tell you accurately if a Zarya is going to have their ult, or if they're close to their ult, if they just used it, stuff like that. And then they also communicate with the team in between team fights. What ults will you be using and comboing in your team fight and whatnot? So they are the smaller decision makers, and they talk primarily before and after fights, whereas the macro shot callers who do target calling and then direction choosing, I guess, they talk primarily during the fight. So you have those two things. And I think it's really important that as soon as you get your team established, really grind hard so you can get used to each other for the first couple weeks before a tournament, or before you start scrimmaging, and then figure out who has the personality to do it as well as the knowledge that's needed to do it. And have team announcements and official comms areas for people to talk to as well. So a lot of in-game stuff, and then the out-of-game stuff is also really important. Team rules and discipline. Nobody ever wants to talk about this, but it's something that needs to happen, especially when you are getting paid. Every agency has different contracts. My agency actually has super chill contracts for my team. But whenever you make a team, you need to have leadership and established rules in place to hold players accountable. There is nothing worse than signing up for a tournament with a bunch of players that you think are going to steamroll and win, and then 2 or 3 of those players just deciding 3 weeks into the tournament after you can't change your roster, oh yeah, this is too much work for me, I can't commit and finish the tournament, you guys are gonna have to withdraw. Oh well. That sucks. That's happened to me before. And so there have to be certain rules in place, like even not even like talking from an agency standpoint, but if you're gonna get together with a bunch of your friends and stuff, like if you guys decide to enter a tournament together, like just have it like be known beforehand, like, hey, think about this for like a week before you decide to commit. Because a lot of tournaments that are like leagues, they last like over a month. So like the shortest tournament I've been in that wasn't just a weekend tournament was like a 2.5 month long tournament. So it takes quite a bit of your life and whatnot. And so I'm going to just talk about some of the generic team rules that I've had to deal with over the past few years. So like I said, time commitment as far as like being able to say, yes, I will be playing this game on this team for this number of weeks. That's really important. Another thing is how frequently a player will be playing that game during this number of weeks. Every other professional team that I have talked to over the past couple of years, they have always said that their players have to dedicate like about 5 hours a day to playing the game in order to play at like the highest level. Like my agency's Arena Valor team just placed 5th in Worlds, I think, down in Brazil a few weeks ago. And I know for a fact that they play like 5 hours a day, if not more. And they've had to kick people because they won't play. So, like, if you can't put, like, it's more than just multiple weeks. It's, like, literally a part-time job when you get to the, like, highest tier, if not a full-time job. Another thing is when you become, especially when you become part of an agency, if you're lucky enough to have that happen to you, like, you become a public figure whether you want to be one or not. Like, you will be on their website. Their sponsors will be talking about you on their social media. Like, you'll have to do photo shoots in your jerseys and stuff. Like, you have to go to events sometimes. You are going to be in tournament streams. Sometimes tournaments will ask you to commentate. Like, you'll be doing a lot of things publicly, and eventually your social media will grow to reflect that. You can't be a horrible person. Like, I've seen a lot of players shoot themselves in the foot because they say a lot of really toxic things online. Like, you can be the best player in the world, but like if you're racist, like nobody's going to work with you because that's horrible. Like, you shouldn't be racist. Like, you can't be sexist and be successful in this industry. Like, there are just certain things that you shouldn't act like, and those rules are normally in contracts. Another thing that I've seen is like if you are in like an agency team and you're signed to that team, you can't play on another team. So like, for instance, I wanted to get some people together and play for memes in the Overwatch LAN tournament here, but like I'm not with my team, so like I probably shouldn't do that because that would be like a conflict of interest type thing, even though it's not like a real tournament, you know? So things like that. And then for rules, you also should have like a chain of command. So like, we don't want to assume people are going to break the rules at some point, but somebody will break the rules at some point, like realistically and statistically speaking. So you want to make sure that you have like a discipline code in effect, like from the time they start the team. So we have like a 3 strikes you're out type thing and like a suspension period. So those are things to look into as well. And then there can also be other management involved other than just like yourself as the captain. Like if you do have coaches or analysts or even a team manager, like you could get them involved as well. Like if there's a player who like just is doing something incredibly stupid in game that keeps costing you guys matches and stuff, and your coach keeps telling the player about that and the player refuses to change because like they think they know better than the coach, or for whatever reason they don't change their play style. I'm sick, I'm sorry. In like a certain time frame, like then that would be a point where you would have to like have yourself sit down with like the manager and the coach, the player in question, yourself as the captain, and then talk through this, like, hey, you need to change this or else you're going to get off the team type thing. Same thing with not showing up to practice. Like, if you don't show up to practice, why are we giving you $100 of free sponsored gear if you're not even putting forth minimal effort, you know? And then ideally, like, this is the hard part as a captain, is like nipping this behavior in the bud. Because if you're gaming with this, like, the same small group of people every day for like the same amount of time that you'd be in a part-time job, like, you get to know the people pretty well and like form connections and bonds with them, which is fantastic. But if those people have like problematic tendencies, sometimes that can be really rough disciplining them. And ideally, you want to make sure that you're able to handle the disciplining, even though it's like, I think, the most difficult part of being in leadership in esports. You want to make sure you get that done before like the negative behavior makes it out to the public and stuff, because not only will it be like a negative representation of the player, but of the team, the sponsors, the agency, stuff like that. Like, you want to keep your agency and sponsors happy. They give you nice things. Like, you want to keep them happy. So just being able to handle that quickly is always preferable. And then how to market a team. This is probably the most relevant thing in this whole panel for everybody. There are a lot of more talented gamers than I in the world, I'm not gonna lie. A lot of talented people don't know how to market themselves and get their names out there, or they have like toxic behavior and whatnot. And so like learning how to market yourself as a player, like either as a free agent, or if you get your group together and you have a team, like being able to market yourself as that is so crucial in order to get sponsors and potentially get signed to an agency. Social media is extremely useful for any aspiring esports professionals. Who here has any social media specifically for like their Twitch channel or for like streaming purposes, anything like that? Okay, a few of you. How many of you would die happy if you ever got to be a professional gamer? Okay, so there are like a lot more hands of the people who want to be pro gamers than the people who have social media. For those of you that want to be a pro gamer, get some social media. The most relevant social media sites for esports currently are Twitter and Twitch. And then you can also have a YouTube where you can do like highlight clips and or like frag clips, stuff like that, or reaction videos to like different things. Post your scrims up there, post your tournament matches, things like that. You should focus on building your players up, not just as team members, but as their own individual personalities as well. Like, at the end of the day, you're never going to play Overwatch until you retire. Like, you're not going to play, like, you're not even going to be a Smash player until you hit 50 or something like that. Like, most esports professionals that are players, they have a shelf life of like 1 to 3 years. And then either the game will die out in popularity and the professional circuit loses its funding, or the player just like rage quits or gets too tired and they just don't want to keep playing it anymore, because it's a lot more work than a lot of people realize. So like, you want to be able to have that brand image that you created as a pro gamer to like fall back on afterwards, because this is a really short career choice and stuff. It's not something that you're going to be able to do for your whole life. So it's something to keep in mind. And then like, for instance, like talking about your teammates is something really big, because when you first start out, like nobody's going to have a big social media following or anything like that. So one of the best ways to like get more people to see your stuff is to like have your teammates like host you while you're streaming, or like make a stream schedule with your team members where like, okay, so we have 5 hours of practice today. Like, I'll stream the first like hour and a half, and then I'll come raid so-and-so's stream, and they'll stream the next hour and a half of practice. And then like we'll hop into chat and like talk to our viewers and your viewers like while we're waiting on queue times, because like Masters and Plus queue times last for 10 minutes sometimes for no apparent reason, and then so on and so forth. And so like you guys can help build each other up that way, or like retweet your like gaming announcements. Like say somebody hit like they hit #1 McCree in the world or something like that, like share that. Like that's amazing, that's a big deal. Like, you should revel in your teammates' success and whatnot, and have your followers revel in that success with your team as well. And then you also want to talk as much as you can about any big tournament wins or placements. So basically be your own team's hype squad. So like, how many of you have been to like, I'm going to use a fighting game tournament for an example. How many of you have ever been to like a really big Smash or like Street Fighter tournament before? Yeah, a few of you. Awesome. So like, you know, when you're at these big tournaments and then like some of the players will have like their squad behind them, like hyping them up. And like, for instance, yelling out things like, yo, go kill that tropical Skittle, when you're yelling at like Majin Buu with the blue skin and Dragon Ball Fighters. Like, you want to be like that for your own team and stuff. Like, it's the cool thing to do. It's what people do at tournaments. It's awesome. But like, you want to be like that on social media too. Like I said, like, if I ever hit #1 Mercy in the world, if my team didn't share that, I would be highly offended. Like, you just want to make sure that you're there to like help build your team up and stuff like that. And then streaming is hugely important. And for any aspiring players, I highly encourage them to start streaming on a regular basis. So like, a lot of agencies, one of the things that they do to contract their players, not just players, but also to contract their content creators, you have to create X amount of content per week or per month. For instance, my first contract with Pride Start Gaming, I got signed on as a content creator, and then they let me bring my Overwatch team with me because I won enough tournaments at that point. So they were like, yeah, we'll let you do the thing. Why not? It'll be fun. It'll be great. And then we kept winning, so it was great. But so like, as a content creator, I had like a part-time salary and everything, and I had to stream a minimum of 10 hours every week as a content creator. So like, I had to be streaming gaming, or I had to be streaming like creative on Twitch for like 10 hours a week or something like that, which isn't very hard when you're signed as a gamer, because like, oh, you can just stream practice and you'll hit that in like 2 days. But different agencies have different requirements for that. And generally speaking, when it comes to sponsorships and whatnot, sponsors nowadays tend to care less about actual game skill and like tournament wins than they do about social media following, which I think is very backwards, but that's the world that we live in right now. And so like, making sure you have that big social media presence will help your ability to get signed, not just like by an agency, but by sponsors as well. So that's something to keep in mind. So when to start approaching agencies and sponsors? If you're lucky, they'll approach you. I was very lucky. I asked advice from my friend who owned an agency about something, and then he's like, oh, you're actually really good. We should just sign you. And that's kind of how that happened. But I'm talking a lot more in depth about this in my panel tomorrow at 2:30. But like, the general overview is, after you and your team have a decent amount of tournament experience and wins under your belt, it is an acceptable time to start reaching out to agencies and sponsors. So like, the first Overwatch tournament I ever entered, my team and I placed second. And then our second tournament, we placed second. So we kept having a top 2 finish, which is pretty good. Like, I don't know how many of you have done tournaments before, but like, winning is great and whatnot, but in tournaments, normal, like depending on the size of the tournament, it's really good just to even finish in like top 8 or like top 16. It really depends on the tournament. For my tournaments, like, just being top 4 was pretty incredible. So the fact that we like consistently were in the finals was a pretty big deal. And then, like I said, social media is also really important. To give you guys an idea, I'll use DX Racer as an example. In order to get 1 chair sent to you, to be considered to have 1 chair sent to you, you have to have a minimum of, I think, 250 1,000 followers on like one social media site. That's a lot. Like, that's more than some cities have and like their population. Like, that's a big deal. You have to be pretty famous in order for like these really big sponsors. So like thousands are necessary in order to do it on your own. And then you definitely want to do your research before you reach out. So like, for instance, I'm primarily a console player. If I'm primarily a console player, I'm not going to reach out to like Razer, be like, hey, can you give me some keyboards? Like, I really like that Black Widow. Sure, what are you going to use it for? My office computer? Like, I don't PC game, but I think your stuff is cool. Like, they're just going to laugh at you. Like, there's no point in asking for that. And then when you approach agencies and sponsors, you want to be as professional as possible. So another thing that a lot of gamers don't understand, it is a potential business deal that involves money, either in time, like money is time, money is merchandise, money is exposure in some cases. And you need to treat the company that you are reaching out to as such. So don't just like at them on Twitter, you know, or like show up in their, like if they're streaming something, don't just like show up in their like Twitch chat and be like, hey, you want to give me a free mouse? Like, no, don't do that. Like, send an actual email with like references to prove that you're not just some random person from the internet messaging them. And that's basically my panel. I have like, I'll always leave a lot of time for Q&As. So like, any questions? Okay, in the back, yeah. And this mic works. Yeah, that would be best. So like we can get you in frame because like we're filming on both sides. Yeah.
Mic check 1 2. Okay. So this is more on what I came in when you were talking about comms, and as you're probably aware, Washington D.C. just got their first Overwatch League team, Washington Justice.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So that team, I believe, consists of some Korean players, 2 from Contenders, and then 2 others I can't remember. But the issue that my buddy brought up that I didn't think of was a language barrier during shot calling. So in that case, I believe they have to worry about 2 speaking Korean, 1 speaking Chinese, and then English. So how, I mean, I don't have to deal with this on my team, which is great, but how would you overcome something like that if that was the language barrier, essentially? So.
Well, generally speaking, I know that teams do have translators. That's not really practical in in-game comms when a quarter of a second matters.
Right.
So what I think would be a really good idea would be if all of the players learned very simple, like, words in the same language. So whether it be Korean, Chinese, or English, just be like, mercy right, mercy low.
Up, down, whatever.
To like understand that, like learn all of the names of the players, like things like payload, objective, like different directions. Like I said, left or right, forward, behind, flank, things like that.
Just enough to get
by, and then like they focus on the more like involved linguistics outside of practice.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but that could be a fun team building exercise, actually. You know?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm in a position where the players that I have in my agency started a few months ago. So the players have been long established, so they have a little bit of clout and following and that sort of thing. So my question would be, what would you recommend as far as you had a panel on discipline and maintaining a work ethic? I mean, you can always like influence pain, that sort of thing. But when you're not the one with massive following that's pushing them forward, how do you keep them in line with their behavior?
Well, I like using common sense.
Okay.
When I address my players, I have like 2 people on my team that are actual teenagers.
Okay.
So like I've had to use different things with them, like, hey, like, you want to make money, right? this tournament we're about to enter into, like we've placed second in it 3 times. It has a $10,000 grand prize. Maybe if we actually work a little bit harder,
Right.
we won't get second place this time. We'll get first. You could put a down payment on a car. You're 16. That matters to
Right.
you. Like
Right.
things like that. Or like you could buy your textbooks for that month for college.
Right.
Or a semester with that. Things like that. Like if your players are entering into tournaments with like actual prize pools, like that's something you can use to motivate them.
I should clarify. They're like, it's a personality, it's a content creator based agency. I don't know if that's something that I mean. Yeah,
I mean,
that's
I've done
specific.
content creator stuff.
Right.
Do they currently make money doing it, or is
I mean,
it...
they do. They're very good streamers on Twitch. They're partnered and that sort of thing. So I guess mainly it's like kind of keeping that they do like the sponsorship slides and make sure they're pushing those sponsors and that sort of thing and wearing those sort of things. Yeah.
I'd be like, do you like the free stuff you get?
Right.
You need to do the thing in order to get the thing.
Right.
Like that's kind of what I tell my players, and if it doesn't work, like if they're just still not getting the issue, there's like 30 other people who will get the issue.
Right.
Who you could have replace them, and that's the nature of the beast as far as esports are concerned, because there are millions of players and only like a couple thousand job openings, you know?
Okay.
So.
Do you have I don't know if there's a panel for it. Do you have any recommended stipulations in contracts? Like as far as opt-outs or?
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that.
Okay. Just general. Okay. I guess.
I don't make the contracts for my agency. I'm
Right.
like, other than being the captain for the team, I'm like the director of live events and
Okay.
stuff. So I don't handle any of the legality things.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so
sorry.
much. Anyway. No. I totally get it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Hi there. I have 2 questions.
Hi.
Hope that's not a problem. The first one is most people play video games with friends, and even I guess at higher levels they're playing with friends. And you may not have had to deal with this with your team, but how would you deal with a situation where one of your friends is really good and another one of your friends is bad, and you want to go professional?
Oh my god, that's so hard.
Right?
Oh my gosh, I've had to deal with that.
Oh, well, there.
Other new players on my team have had to like everybody's had to deal with that. Like let's be honest, like everybody has that one friend who can't even shoot a stationary target, like
Yeah.
or like
Or always plays Bastion.
or always plays Bastion when they're running, like.
Actually, it's me. But how would you deal with that kind of situation?
I mean, make a Smurf account. Like that's the easiest solution. Like make a Smurf account. I have like 6 Smurf accounts.
Okay.
That way, like you can still play with them, and because I'm assuming that if you're not carrying them, they're not going to achieve the same elo that you will be achieving, most likely. So, like, I know it's more expensive if you play on PC and everything because you actually have to buy a Smurf account. But, I mean, you can get it on, like, a weekend sale for, like, $20, which, I mean, if you don't lose a friendship, like, I'd be willing to put down $20. And then while you're smurfing, you could actually use that for your advantage as well, because you could try out different characters that you don't get to play in tournaments or like on the ladder at your current elo. So like say if you're like a DPS main, like you could Rhine or something and learn a different role. And that would help not just you be a more well-rounded player, but it can also help you understand that player on your team's like how they play, like why they do certain things, and it can help like team synergy if everybody has a general understanding of every role.
And if you don't mind for another question.
That's fine.
So obviously this is a bit more management oriented. So obviously when it comes to a team and you have players, you have yourself a team manager, obviously you have an agency you work for, and you have sponsors. At what point have you ever found a situation where a sponsor's view of what your team should be doing or what you should be doing as players and your agency's view are different? And in that case, do you work directly with the sponsors, or does your agency work with them to decide what you should be doing?
Okay, so I have 2 different groups of sponsors. I have a group of sponsors that I had before I signed with my agency, and they are exclusively my sponsors. They don't do anything else for the agency. And then I have sponsors that I have through the agency. For the sponsors that I have through the agency, they are through the agency. Like the sponsorship contracts that are with agencies, like for instance, my agency signed with Bloody Gaming, hence why I have a nice thing I'm going to give away in a few minutes. At the end of the day, I love Bloody. I think they're really awesome. I love working with them. But if my agency wanted to go in a different direction because of my contract, I would have to go with my agency or break my contract. And my agency pays my bills. Bloody sends me nice things. That's how most sponsorship contracts work. If it was for my sponsors outside of my agency, it's kind of the same thing. Like, that sounds horrible. But like, unless like now, if the sponsor was attempting to buy you out, that's a different story. But I'm assuming that you're not in a position where a sponsor would be willing, like, I'm not in a position where a sponsor would be willing to like match or beat what I get paid through my agency. So like, that's a different scenario, and that doesn't really happen very often, honestly.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, just go by with like, I mean, you're gonna have bills your whole life and stuff, and like companies understand that you have bills, so it's kind of my mindset.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
Good. So I walked up here and read the first paragraph, and I realized that you're probably going to be covering this in your next session here, but I'm not going to be here, unfortunately. Do you have any quick tips for finding agencies and sponsors, or quick tips about creating like a personal and team resume and your own personal resume in relation to like what you've done for your team and what you bring as a general manager when maybe trying to get signed to a currently existing team as a newly brought in general manager, for example?
Okay. So you're talking as a manager, not as a player or content creator.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Any teams that you have managed prior, if those teams have been successful, list the tournaments they have had successful placements at. List any relevant work experience. So, like if you've worked with sponsors before, like list the sponsors you've worked with and like what you've done for them, things like that. If you haven't worked with sponsors, or been with a team before, like I said, social media is a really big thing. I hate that it's a really big thing because it's super vapid and not an actual indication of a player or person's like credibility or like ability to perform their job. But social media is really important. In order to get experience, you can also volunteer with agencies. Some smaller agencies do volunteer positions, and you can build up experience that way and network. Another thing is LinkedIn is very useful as far as like the business side of esports. It is like, if you want to do esports and actually make money, you join LinkedIn and you get in all of the esports circles, because there's a lot of like really important people in there that you need to talk to, and you can get experience that way and like get your name out there that way as well.
Cool. And as far as finding and like securing sponsors or things that are available, are there any like, is that kind of like sorry, I have two brain cells today, you know what I'm saying? It's MAGFest.
I feel you.
I'm looking for some correct words here, but is it same avenue as that? Or because those were like two separate questions, meaning like the first one was specifically towards how do you find and reach out to agencies? How do you know who's looking for teams or who's looking to provide sponsorships, I guess I could say.
Okay. You can reach out. I actually made my first 3 or 4 sponsors through going to conventions and just talking to people.
Okay.
Word of mouth is really good. And also, like, I like meeting people IRL. Everybody gets like a lot of emails if you're in a company and whatnot, and emails can get lost, or like you can't really express yourself or your personality as clearly, I think, in emails as you can if you get to like actually sit down or like talk to somebody at their booth with them. And I think that's really useful. Also, don't reach out to the big names if you're a no name. Aim for like smaller things and then build your way up. Like a small like startup that you would, like, let's say you want like a mouse pad or something like that, and you can offer to do a product review for them. And like that product review or like the product review article or something could be really beneficial to a startup to have somebody like say like the pros and cons of their product versus like a big like multi-million-dollar company that already has like a team of people who do that for them on payroll. Or like if you just ask for a product instead of like a company pay you to post about the product. So like you just have to think like relative to like your reach and your credibility in the industry, if that helps. Does that, do you understand that?
Sure.
Okay.
Definitely. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. So do I have any more questions? No? Okay, cool. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and do the giveaway then. I'm going to do a little trivia thing. So raise your hand if you want to like be a part of the trivia. I'm gonna do like some questions, and then like the first to like stand up, I guess when I ask the question, gets the and like answers the question correctly. Obviously, they can't be wrong. Gets the mouse pad and everything. All right. So, as far as Blizzard Overwatch is concerned, what character in beta had a moving shield? There you go. Yay!